Hi, this is Dr. Maggie Perry with Tell Me What You're Proud of. This month, we're talking about experiential avoidance and how avoidance maintains and intensifies your anxiety. So today on the show, we have Jared. Jared's going to tell us more about his avoidance. Jared, thanks so much for being on the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So tell me how avoidance plays out in your life, how it showed up in the past, what's going on for you now.
Avoidance has actually played a pretty big part of my throughout my life, actually. Ever since it's the first thing that I clearly remember was after graduation and after graduation of college, and I was just trying to find a place to work. And I just had this huge anxiety attack about, knowing the fine lines between what is professional, what is personal, knowing the boundaries, and if there's a need to act professional in all these things. And I actually kind of tried to avoid doing a lot of, especially during the recruitment process or any of those things, because I just felt it wasn't, it just felt very foreign to me. And so I always avoided that, never really looked at, never really looked into going through the conventional process of trying to get your first job after college. That was just a huge struggle for me. And I ended up just wanting to avoid that whole process altogether. So, I mean, in other words, it took a while for me to truly understand what it meant to be independent. And I was just kind of avoiding that for a very long time, I guess. But there were other aspects, underlying aspects in terms of why I felt like I was in that situation. The second thing was
actually, can I just interrupt you there?
Yeah.
What feelings were you avoiding? When you look back
definitely, I had a huge there was all these sensations, especially during that process. I always felt like I needed to. It was just an overbearing weight that I felt like that was on my shoulders, and I was avoiding it every single moment. Even though the day to graduation was getting closer and closer, and you see all your other peers who are have their job offers already, and I'm just there, just like just still kind of clueless in terms of what to do, because I just wanted to avoid this whole having to act professional type of thing. It sounds ridiculous now, but it was definitely a huge problem in the past for me. I guess you can call it social anxiety that I wanted to avoid.
Mm-hmm. So you had anxious sensations, you had pressure in your chest. What kind of socially anxious thoughts would you have?
The thoughts at the time were a lot of, I guess you can say, like helplessness and like hopelessness. I just never felt like I could do it. I never felt like I can do anything by my own worth or by my own merits, because just all throughout life, I felt I was catered towards, or I had help in some way or form, leading up to my college career, college life. And so there was I guess I had a very skewed sense of what it was like to really work in the real world, per se, quote unquote. So now I forgot the question. What was it?
Yeah, no problem. So those are the types of feelings and thoughts that you were having, that it was mostly thoughts of like hopelessness and helplessness, like you
Yes,
kind of had
absolutely.
a lack of efficacy, rooted in not really like putting yourself out there and risking failing in the past.
No, yes, absolutely. I don't think, I mean, now in hindsight, I just, I never felt like I had independently gained anything, like I actually achieved anything. It was all just part of I just needed to create this facade in one way or the other. And I did that, pretty much until I went up to college, and now having, now directly facing the reality of life in the workforce, I just really didn't know how to, battle with that, or how to conquer those anxiety feelings, even though I know that everybody else was feeling it and everybody else was kind of like, feeling the same type of feeling that I did. I actually, instead of using it as, motivation or incentive, or, in some way use it as strength to keep me going, I just wanted to avoid the whole situation. And yeah, you're right. I don't think I mean, I never felt a lot of self-efficacy or a lot of confidence, especially when I was in the process of creating my resume. Even just looking at my name was just like, ugh. So it was a lot of, like, I felt like I didn't achieve, there was a lack of achievement throughout my life that didn't exactly meet the requirements of what was needed after graduation and going into the workforce.
Hmm. And then, so how has avoidance impacted you over the years?
Yeah, I, avoided a lot of how I was, I try to avoid a lot of my thought processes throughout the years, through, substance abuse. I drank a lot of alcohol, smoked a lot of weed. And, I just felt like that was one way of trying to avoid, in terms of how to work and deal with, my thought process, how I was feeling, my senses of depression and anxiety and all that. Instead of just like really trying to work with it, I, used other means to do so and tried to suppress it. Uh, but
Do you remember actively um, trying to suppress what you were feeling, or was it more subconscious than that?
It, I mean, it was a few years back, so I definitely felt like it was a lot of thought suppression at first, like about, it was a lot of thought suppression in terms of how how the family would view me. I come from a pretty conservative household, so it's a, it I just felt like I didn't reach their expectations. I didn't reach their level. And, and given, coupled with like this lack of achievement that I was feeling just like all throughout life, that really put me into a downer. And to avoid those feelings, substance abuse definitely played its role. So yeah, I mean, so that had happened, and yeah, I just felt like I couldn't do anything. I didn't know what I identified with. I just felt like I was lost, like hit rock bottom for a little bit in my mid 20s. Yeah.
Hmm. And then what did you start going towards? How did you start relating to avoidance that helped you get out of that kind of rock bottom situation?
What really helped me got out of this rock bottom situation was, I mean, I'm doing it right now with you. Was I was, just dropped out of law school, and I had nothing. I just didn't know what to do. I was at a point where, I just felt like I didn't care about anything. Depression was running pretty high. Just everything just seemed like a chore. Just anything. Just walking out, going to the bathroom, or taking a shower, just any daily basic needs that people do on a daily basis. it's it was just, everything just seemed like a chore. So um it really changed once I was, pretty much pushed to doing therapy. And it really gave me I really came into it with no expectations. It was not exactly my first therapy session I had, but I already did have a stigma, towards it. And I had my own perspective on it. Didn't really think much of it, especially from my background. It wasn't really something that I thought was completely necessary. But having gone through this, in short, having gone through this therapy process has really had just had a huge impact on the way that I view things now. and the way how I view my, my own, content areas and my own, my own identity. I mean, I just feel like it had hugely impacted me to the point where now I'm in grad school to be, to hopefully become a licensed clinical therapist.
Yeah, it's such a amazing shift from kind of stigmatizing and feeling like therapy wasn't worth it or it wasn't helpful or something like that to wanting to do that as your career. So that's really great.
Yeah.
Can you say if we frame this up as like a lot of your suffering earlier in your life was the byproduct of experiential avoidance? So the way that you were avoiding your both your internal experience and your external experience. Can you tell how therapy has helped you turn towards your experience, whether that's internal or external?
Um, I'm not exactly sure how to respond to this question. And I hope I'm going in the right direction here. It was a lot of perspective taking, I thought, for me on my end, in just a way in terms of how I should be, you know, dealing with my issues. Like, how should I change my perspective on how I see it? And, just embrace the things that had already happened. And, just how would what would you do moving forward instead of like always looking towards the past and just just like relishing in that instead. That because that just created a lot of avoidance for me, and just staying quiet like created a lot of avoidance for me, I felt. It was
So you
uh
learn to accept what has already happened. You learn to accept your past mistakes rather than ruminating or beating yourself up. And then that gave you more energy to look forward.
no, absolutely. It was a lot of yeah, I did a lot of self beating up. Maybe like a lot of my inner thoughts was just about how I was not good at anything, how I was never going to be successful, or how I was, never going to really have anything fulfilling in life. And also at the same time, I felt like I was told never to complain, never to, you never to show your concerns or like your feelings, just like keep it to yourself and learn how to deal with it emotionally, or I mean, just individually. No, personally. So it's, it, the more that I started to accept, like, one thing from therapy was I still needed to. I feel like I needed a lot of reassurance, but at the same time, I was seeking a lot of reassurance. But at the same time, I needed to learn how to also not worry about being a burden complex in a sense,
Mhm.
uh,
So
because that also created a lot of avoidance.
you needed to learn when to reach out for help and that you deserved that help when you needed it, but then also when you were seeking reassurance just because you felt anxious when you needed to kind of give yourself that um, um, not you couldn't give yourself that sense of uncertainty. I guess you have to, rather than getting reassurance, learn to tolerate uncertainty.
Right. How to tolerate uncertainty, and also just like having these support groups as, just perceived self efficacy, as you can probably say.
Mhm.
Just like how I would perceive, just myself, even though whatever is going to be happening in the future, we still don't know yet. So that's also one thing that I felt like I had to really learn was not to, not to think too much of the end result and the consequences too much or overthink it. I mean, as much as it is an important factor, it's probably one of the main reasons of why in general I had been avoiding, just a lot of opportunities, or a lot of, just opportunities for growth, personal growth, professional growth, just a lot of those things. So,
Mhm. And is there still avoidance in your everyday life today?
You know, yeah, I mean, there is, and it's not as, I don't feel as, I definitely feel I have a growth in self-confidence and my self-esteem at this moment. And I have to thank a lot of that, credited a lot to my cycling passion, my passion for cycling. And, that really helped me keep in shape. It really helped my days going. I just always felt great every day. And that's one thing that I have been avoiding quite a bit. And not in terms of, short distance cycling. I mean, I will still ride my bike to CVS or to another convenience store, or just to run some errands. But doing long rides like the commute rides that I used to do pre-COVID, I mean, I miss those days. And now I just find it like decently hard to find the motivation to do it. But as I said before, I feel like I'm taking this on in a different mentality and a different view, and how I perceive my avoidance, and to be okay with it. And, that I am still riding my bike. It's just not the distances that I used to be having before. Not to give excuses, but just to give myself a little more positive support.
Yeah. So can you say more about, like, basically, it sounds like you are hoping for a certain outcome, but rather than beating yourself up to get to that outcome, you're being more self-compassionate and kind of meeting yourself where you are. Is that how you would frame it up?
Absolutely. I think self-compassion is definitely the right word for me in this case. I've definitely felt a lot more self-compassion about myself. Weirdly, throughout COVID, during these COVID times, I, I'm now attending, I'm doing grad school now, and that probably gave me a lot of reinforcement, a lot of, self-efficacy, feelings of self-efficacy, and just a lot of feelings of confidence as well. But this was also a moment of, I forgot the question. Sorry. I mean, my mind is really just trying to run there. What was the question again?
Yeah, we are back to, it sounds like you're being more self-compassionate about trying to achieve your outcome rather than getting there through self-criticism.
Oh, right. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. And so I just felt like I had a lot of self-compassion even throughout my grad school experience. And that just kind of helped with, I think, just trying to be like that on a consistent basis. I mean, I still have challenges of a lot of those bad negative thoughts coming in about myself, but I'm in a better place to control them. So, yeah, but a lot of these events that also happened as of recent just probably helped with that as well.
Yeah. So what helps you control your unwanted or negative self-talk that isn't avoidance? Can you say more about that? What you do that's helpful but not like suppression?
Um, Sometimes I just try to, so like in terms of how do I try to be more self-compassionate with my talk,
Yeah.
with my self-talk,
Yeah.
when I do avoid, or in either case.
In either case.
Yeah, I mean, when I don't ride my bike, I just kind of tell myself that it's okay, and that, this is really, that I feel like that a lot of these moments are really happening because a lot of these behaviors for me are really happening because of, we're just living during these crazy times, and that eventually I'll get back into it. But there is that challenge that I do have in my head, even though, just because knowing myself, sometimes I never follow through with a lot of my plans. But I really just try to be not as self-criticizing as possible. In how should I say it? I just calm myself down. I just tell myself that it's okay.
And what gives you willingness to be so self-compassionate?
Uh, Now I feel like, because I just have a clear future ahead of me, I really do believe that. And um and also just therapy. I really just have to tie this down to, doing my therapy sessions, because it just really was a big impact in terms of how I needed, well, for my sake, in my opinion, how I needed to view myself. And that is with definitely a little bit more of self-compassion.
Yeah. So just the practice of turning towards your experience and talking about what you were thinking and feeling generated self-compassion kind of naturally over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one other thing I do want to say is I can't forget about my dog because he was a huge process. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, he was a huge process in my growth as well. Like in terms of responsibility, in terms of consistency, having a routine, um, and all of that. And just having a buddy next to me really does put a lot of that loneliness, the feeling of worthlessness, loneliness just kind of out of the window, at least in my case. So, yeah, just a little shout out to him.
That sounds great. I totally agree that animals can be supportive in that way. So,
Mhm.
in our awareness of our time, why don't we end there for today? And then we'll pick back up on how things are going for you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.